Widowed businessman followed pregnant maid, and what he discovered made him tremble. Julian Sterling felt that familiar restlessness that had been with him since losing his wife 3 years ago. At 45, the businessman had built an empire in the construction industry in New York City, but wealth couldn't fill the void Claire had left. On that Tuesday afternoon, while reviewing contracts in his office at the penthouse of the estate on the Upper East Side, something caught his attention through the window. Grace, his maid, rushed out through the gates of the property. What intrigued him most was the way she looked around, as if afraid of being seen. The 32-year-old woman, 6 months pregnant, pedaled her bicycle loaded with plastic bags that seemed too heavy for her condition. Julian had never paid much attention to Grace's schedule, but that didn't seem normal. Something in the maid's nervous behavior stirred a curiosity he hadn't felt in a long time. Julian put down the papers on the desk and went down to the garage. He took his high-end luxury sedan and decided to follow Grace at a safe distance, staying always a few blocks behind. The streets of the upscale neighborhood were busy at that time, which made it easier for him to go unnoticed. Grace pedaled determinedly along the tree-lined streets, her bags swinging on the handlebars. Julian noticed she took a different route than usual, avoiding the main avenues and choosing smaller streets. At every corner, she looked over her shoulder as if she knew she was being watched. After 20 minutes of pedaling, Grace stopped in front of a small medical clinic in Brooklyn Heights. The building was simple, very different from the luxury hospitals Julian was used to visiting. She got off the bicycle and took a thick envelope from one of the bags, quickly checking its contents before entering the clinic. Julian parked across the street and watched carefully. Through the window, he could see Grace talking to a nurse in a blue lab coat. The conversation seemed tense, with Grace gesturing and the nurse shaking her head negatively. Then Grace handed the envelope to the woman, who opened it and quickly counted what was inside. Julian's eyes widened when he saw the banknotes being counted. There were a lot, more than Grace could have with the salary he paid. The nurse smiled and nodded positively, putting the envelope in a locked drawer. Grace sighed in relief and left the clinic, but her shoulders were still tense. Julian waited for Grace to move a few meters away before getting out of the car. His heart was racing. He was sure he had caught a theft. Grace must have taken money or valuables from his house and was selling them to that clinic. But what kind of clinic would buy stolen goods? When Grace stopped at a local deli to buy water, Julian took the opportunity to approach. She was turned around, paying for the bottle, when he touched her shoulder. "Grace, we need to talk." She turned around, startled, dropping the water bottle on the floor. Her brown eyes widened in fear when she saw him. "Mr. Julian, what are you doing here?" "I could ask the same thing. I saw you leave the house with those bags and decided to follow, and what I saw at the clinic didn't please me at all." Grace's hands trembled as she bent down to pick up the bottle. Julian noticed how pale and sweaty she was, even though the day wasn't particularly hot. I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Grace. I saw you handing an envelope full of money to that nurse. Where did that money come from?" Grace looked around the deli, noticing that other customers were starting to pay attention to the conversation. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "Please, Mr. Julian, can we talk at home? This isn't the place. I'm not going anywhere until you explain what you were doing at that clinic, and don't come at me with lies." Grace's eyes filled with tears. She placed her hand protectively over her rounded belly. The money was mine. I saved it to pay for some tests." "Tests? What tests cost that much? And why didn't you use the health insurance I pay for you?" "It's complicated, Mr. Julian. Some special tests I need to do. The plan doesn't cover everything." Julian crossed his arms, clearly unconvinced by the explanation. "Grace, I'm not stupid. The amount I saw in that envelope was much more than you earn in 2 months. Where did that money come from?" I saved up. I have some savings put aside." "Savings? On the salary you earn, you can barely cover your basic expenses, and you still send money to your family upstate." Grace lowered her head, tears now streaming freely down her face. Julian felt a tightness in his chest seeing the woman's despair, but he couldn't ignore what he had witnessed. "Mr. Julian, I beg you, give me a chance to explain everything properly. I just need a little more time." "Time for what?" To come up with a better story? Grace, I trusted you. I let you take care of my home, my most valuable belongings. And now I find out you're involved in... I don't know what. It's not what you think, I swear. Julian shook his head, disappointed. He had liked Grace from the first day she started working for him 2 years ago. She was dedicated, careful, and had never given him reason to suspect. Until now. Let's go back home. I want to go through your things and better understand this situation. Please, Mr. Julian, don't do that. I can explain everything, but I need time. You had 2 years to be honest with me, Grace. Now it's too late. The drive back home was made in silence. Julian drove his high-end luxury sedan, while Grace pedaled her bicycle a few yards ahead, occasionally wiping away the tears that insisted on falling. Julian felt torn between the anger of betrayal and a strange compassion for the pregnant woman who had worked for him for so long. When they arrived at the estate, Julian parked in the garage while Grace put her bicycle away in the backyard. They met in the kitchen, where the silence was as heavy as a storm cloud. "Sit down," Julian said, pointing to one of the chairs at the kitchen table. "Now tell me the truth. All of it." Grace sat down heavily, her hands clasped over her belly. Julian pulled up a chair and sat across from her, keeping a safe distance. "I didn't steal anything from your home, Mr. Julian. I would never do that." "Then explain to me where that money came from." Grace took a deep breath before answering. "The money. Part of it came from extra jobs I do on weekends. Cleaning offices, caring for the elderly. Another part..." She hesitated. "Another part what?" "My previous employer. She left me some savings when she passed." Julian raised an eyebrow. "What previous employer? You said I was your first job as a housekeeper." Grace went pale as she realized the contradiction in her words. I meant it was a lady I cared for. She had no family and left me a little money saved up." "And you decided to use that money for medical tests?" "Yes, special tests for the baby. Since I don't know who the father is, I need to do some more expensive tests." Julian studied Grace's face, looking for signs of a lie. Something in her story didn't add up, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly what. "All right. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt for now. But I want you to know I'll be keeping an eye on you. Anything suspicious I notice, you'll be out on the street that same day." "Thank you, Mr. Julian. I promise you won't regret it." But Julian had already made his decision. The next day, he would call a private detective he had used for business matters. He needed to investigate Grace more thoroughly before she could cause bigger problems. That night, Julian barely got any sleep. He kept replaying the scene at the clinic in his mind, trying to understand what he had actually witnessed. Grace had always been an exemplary employee, but everyone has their secrets, and his was that he couldn't stand being deceived. The next morning, Julian called Marcus Harper, a private detective he had worked with on industrial espionage cases. Marcus was a discreet and efficient man, exactly what Julian needed. "Marcus, I need you to investigate someone for me, my housekeeper. I suspect she's involved in something shady." "No problem, Julian. Send me her details and I'll start today." Julian passed on all the information he had about Grace: full name, address, work hours, everything. Marcus promised results in a week. Meanwhile, Julian decided to observe Grace more closely. In the following days, he noticed she received strange phone calls during work hours. Whenever the phone rang, she would look around nervously before answering, speaking in a low voice and hanging up quickly when she realized he was nearby. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and hit like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us beginners. Now continuing. On the 4th day of observation, Julian decided to pay closer attention to the phone calls. Hidden behind the living room door, he managed to hear fragments of a conversation Grace had in the kitchen. "Yes, I got the money. No, he didn't suspect a thing. Please, just a few more weeks and I need this job." Julian's heart raced. Grace was clearly involved in something she knew was wrong. But what could it be? And who was the person on the other end of the line? That afternoon, while Grace was tidying up the upstairs bedrooms, Julian took the opportunity to examine the bags she always carried. He found receipts from a pharmacy, bank transfer slips, and a business card from a different clinic than the one he had seen before. The card was from a rehab clinic in the Bronx in New York City. Julian typed the address into the navigation app and saw it was in a very remote and underserved area. Why would Grace have a card from a rehab clinic? His investigation was interrupted when he heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Quickly, he put everything back and pretended to be reading the newspaper in the living room when Grace appeared. "Mr. Julian, can I leave early today? I have a doctor's appointment." "Of course, is everything okay with you and the baby?" "Yes, just routine." But Julian noticed she avoided looking him directly in the eyes when answering. As soon as Grace left, he called Marcus. "Marcus, I found a card from a rehab clinic among her things, New Dawn Recovery Center in the Bronx. Interesting, I'll check it out. And I have news for you. Your housekeeper has been under investigation for months by an insurance company." "What do you mean?" "Apparently, she was the beneficiary of a very high life insurance policy last year. The insurance company found it suspicious and opened an investigation to check for fraud." Julian felt a chill down his spine. Life insurance? On who? A certain Claire Harper, a relative of hers. The world stopped for Julian. Claire Harper was the maiden name of his deceased wife. "Marcus, I need all the details of that investigation, now." "I'll send you everything in an hour." "But Julian, did you know this Claire?" "She was my wife," Julian whispered, still in shock. After hanging up, Julian sat heavily in his leather armchair. How was it possible that Grace was a beneficiary of Claire's life insurance? Claire had never mentioned knowing anyone named Grace. Was his wife keeping secrets from him? Julian rushed to Claire's office, which he had kept untouched since her departure. He opened her files, searching for any document that mentioned Grace or life insurance. Among the papers, he found a folder marked Personal Matters that he had never opened before. Inside the folder, there were handwritten letters in a handwriting that wasn't Claire's. The letters were signed with, "Your loving sister G." Julian felt his legs go weak. Claire had a sister. How was that possible if she always said she was an only child? His hands trembled as he read the letters. They were affectionate messages about work, financial difficulties, and gratitude for help received. One of the letters, dated a few months before Claire left, said, "Dear sister, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for me and Tyler. The treatment is expensive, but with your help, he's improving. I promise that one day I'll be able to repay all your kindness. Love you so much, G. Tyler." The same name Julian had heard Grace mention on the phone a few times. But who was Tyler? And how did Claire know Grace for so long without Julian knowing? Julian continued rifling through Claire's papers until he found a birth certificate that left him even more confused. It was an adoption certificate in Claire's name, showing that she had been adopted at age 5. The document mentioned that she had a younger biological sister who had also been placed for adoption, but in a different family. The sister's name was Grace Ann Miller Harper. Julian had to sit down when the realization hit him. Grace wasn't just his housekeeper, she was the biological sister of his late wife. But why had Claire never told him this? And why did Grace agree to work for him as if she were a stranger? At that moment, his phone rang. It was Marcus with more information. "Julian, I got more details. Your housekeeper receives a significant monthly amount from a trust fund set up by Claire Harper. The fund was created 3 years ago, shortly before Claire passed away." "A trust fund? For what?" "According to the documents, to cover the medical treatment of a 19-year-old young man named Tyler Harper. Apparently, he's Grace's son and has serious issues with substance addiction." Julian closed his eyes, trying to process all that information. Claire had set up a fund to help Grace's son without him knowing. That meant she had known Grace long before she started working for them. "Marcus, I need more information about that rehab center, and I want to know everything about the relationship between Claire and Grace. I'm already working on it, but Julian, there's one more thing. Grace is being watched by someone else besides me." "What do you mean?" "Someone hired another detective to tail her, and from the description I got, it seems to be someone from your family." Julian felt a pang of anger. Who in his family would be investigating Grace, and why? Can you find out who it is? I can try, but it'll take a few days. After hanging up, Julian paced around the house trying to piece together the puzzle. Claire and Grace were sisters, separated in childhood. They reconnected as adults, and Claire helped Grace financially. When Claire passed away, she left a fund to continue helping Grace and her son. But why keep it a secret? Julian had always been a generous person and would certainly have supported Claire in helping her sister, unless someone had influenced Claire to keep it a secret. Julian thought of his sister-in-law, Victoria. Since Claire passed away, Victoria had shown great interest in the family assets, always suggesting changes in the management of the inheritance. She had never liked Claire much, thinking she was too simple for the Sterling family. Would Victoria be capable of hiring a detective to investigate Grace? And if so, what would be her motivation? Julian decided he needed to confront Grace directly. He could no longer pretend he didn't know the truth. When she returned from her medical appointment, he would have an honest conversation with her. Grace came home in the late afternoon, looking more tired than usual. Julian was waiting for her in the living room, with Claire's letters spread out on the coffee table. "Grace, I need you to sit down. We have a lot to talk about." She entered the room and froze when she saw the letters on the table. Her face instantly paled. "Where did you find this?" "In Claire's files. Files I should have examined a long time ago." Grace sat down slowly, her hands visibly trembling. "She asked me not to tell." "Why, Grace? Why did my wife hide from me that you were her sister?" Tears began to stream down Grace's face. "Because she was afraid of your family's reaction, especially Victoria's." "Victoria? What does my sister-in-law have to do with this? When Claire found out where I was, she was very happy. She wanted to bring me close, to help me. But when she told Victoria about me, Victoria was furious." Julian leaned forward, paying attention to every word. "Victoria said the family already had enough problems without having to carry a poor relative. She threatened to cause trouble if Claire brought me close to the family. And Claire accepted that." "Claire was very good, Mr. Julian. She didn't want to cause trouble for anyone, so she came up with a plan. She would hire me as a maid so she could have me around and help me without anyone knowing who I really was." Julian felt a mix of admiration and sadness. His wife had found a creative way to help her sister without causing family conflict. "And the trust fund?" "For Tyler, my oldest son. He's had drug problems since he was 15. Claire wanted to make sure he would always have money for treatment even after she was gone." "Why didn't you tell me all this when she passed?" Grace wiped her face with her hands. "Because she made me promise not to tell anyone, and because I was afraid you would send me away if you knew the truth." Julian was silent for a few minutes, processing everything he had heard. Claire had been more generous and careful than he imagined, and he had spent 2 years suspecting the only person his wife had left for him to take care of. "Grace, forgive me. I should never have doubted you." "You couldn't have known, Mr. Julian. It's not your fault." "Yes, but I should have trusted you. Claire trusted you, and that should have been enough for me." Grace smiled timidly through her tears. "She spoke very highly of you. She said you were a good man, but that sometimes you let fear make your decisions." "Fear of what?" "Fear of being deceived. She said you suffered a lot in childhood with people who took advantage of your kindness." Julian hadn't expected Grace to know such intimate details of his life. Claire had truly told her sister everything about him. "And now, what do we do with all this?" "I don't know, Mr. Julian. I can keep working for you if you want, or I can look for another job, whatever is best." "Grace, you are family. Claire made that very clear. I don't want you to be my maid. I want you to be part of this family." Grace's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of relief. "Thank you, Mr. Julian. Claire always said you were special. Just call me Julian, and tell me about Tyler. How is he?" "Better. The treatment is working. He's been clean for 6 months and got a job at an auto repair shop near the New Dawn Recovery Center." "Great. And the baby you're expecting?" Grace placed her hands on her belly. "Claire. I'm going to name her Claire in honor of my sister." Julian felt a tightness in his chest. She would be very happy to know that. I hope so. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Julian went to answer and found Victoria at the door, carrying a folder of documents. Julian, we need to talk about some inheritance matters. Oh, Grace is here? She is. And you arrived just in time, Victoria. We have a lot to talk about indeed. Victoria entered the living room and immediately noticed the letters scattered on the table. Her face tensed. What are these papers? Correspondence between Claire and her sister. Correspondence you know very well, don't you? Victoria turned pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Victoria. I know you knew about Grace and that you prevented Claire from telling me the truth. Julian, you don't understand. That woman took advantage of Claire's kindness. She made up that sister story to get money. Made it up. I saw the birth certificate, Victoria. They really are sisters. Victoria looked from Julian to Grace, realizing her secrets had been discovered. Even if they are sisters, Julian, you need to understand that people like her will always want to take advantage of our family. People like her? What do you mean by that? Poor people, Julian. People without education, without class. Claire was already problematic enough with her humble origins. We didn't need another one. Julian felt anger rise in his chest. How dare you speak of my wife like that? Julian, be realistic. Claire was never suitable for our family. And now this one comes with this pregnancy story, trying to secure a place in our inheritance. Our inheritance? Victoria, you have no right to my family's inheritance. I do. I'm your brother's widow, mother of his nephews. I have more right than that intruder. Grace, who had remained silent until then, slowly rose from the armchair. I never wanted anything from the family inheritance. I just wanted to work in peace and raise my children with dignity. Children? How many children do you have? Victoria asked with disdain. I have Tyler, who is 19, and I'm expecting Claire. Claire? You're going to name my sister-in-law's name for your child? It was her wish. She wanted the child to carry her name. Victoria laughed sarcastically. How convenient. Now you even want to steal her name. Julian couldn't take it anymore. Enough, Victoria, you've crossed the line. Julian, open your eyes. That woman is manipulating you just like she manipulated Claire. The only person being manipulative here is you. And now I understand why Claire kept Grace a secret. She knew exactly how you would react. Victoria crossed her arms, adopting a defensive posture. And she was right to fear me, because I see things as they really are. What you see, Victoria, is prejudice. And I won't tolerate that in my house. Julian, you're making a mistake you'll regret. That woman will suck everything you have. The only person trying to suck something from my family is you, Victoria, and I know about the detective you hired to investigate Grace. Victoria's face turned red. How did you know? I hired a detective too. And I discovered many interesting things about your activities. What activities? Your attempts to sell parts of the family estate without my authorization. Your conversations with investors interested in buying our company. Victoria fell silent, realizing she had been caught red-handed. Julian, I was just trying to protect the family's interests. Protect or take advantage? Because according to what my detective found out, you were planning to benefit quite a bit from these sales. Grace watched the argument in silence, still processing everything she was hearing. Julian continued, Victoria, I want you to pack your things and leave my house and don't come back. Julian, you're making a terrible mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you. Now leave. Victoria picked up her folder of documents and walked to the door, but before leaving, she turned to Grace. You may have fooled him, but you don't fool me. I'll find out what your game is. There's no game, Grace replied calmly. I just want to raise my kids in peace. After Victoria left, Julian sat back down next to Grace. I'm sorry about that. I never imagined Victoria could be so cruel. It's okay, Julian. I was used to her remarks. What do you mean? When I first started working here, she always found a way to humiliate me. She said I smelled bad, that I didn't know how to do the job right, that people like me shouldn't be in houses like this. Julian felt a wave of guilt. How had he allowed Grace to be treated this way in his own home? Why didn't you ever tell me? Because she always did it when you weren't around and Claire asked me to hang in there, that one day things would get better. Grace, I promise this will never happen again. You are welcome in this house as a member of the family. Thank you, Julian. That means a lot to me. In the following days, Julian dedicated himself to getting to know his wife's sister better. He discovered that Grace was an incredibly strong and resilient woman. At 15, she had left her foster family because of mistreatment. She lived on her own, working grueling jobs to support herself. At 17, she got pregnant with Tyler. The boy's father disappeared when he learned about the pregnancy, and Grace raised her son alone. She worked as a cleaning lady, a nanny, a cook, anything to make sure Tyler had food and an education. When Tyler turned 15, he started getting involved with the wrong crowd. Grace tried everything to steer him away from drugs, but without success. That was when Claire found her. Through a job Grace was doing cleaning offices, Claire immediately recognized the family features in Grace's face. After an emotional conversation, they confirmed that they were indeed sisters separated in childhood. Claire was devastated to learn of all the suffering Grace had gone through alone. From that moment on, Claire began helping Grace secretly. She paid for private treatment for Tyler, helped Grace with expenses, and set up a trust fund to ensure the support would continue even after her passing. Julian was moved hearing the full story. His wife had been even more generous than he had imagined, and Grace had faced challenges he couldn't even fathom. "Grace, I want to make you a proposal." "What proposal?" "I want you and your kids to come live here, not as a maid, but as family. This house is too big for just one person." Grace was silent for a few minutes before answering. "Julian, that's very generous, but I don't want you to feel obligated because of Claire." "I don't feel obligated. I feel it's the right thing to do. Claire wanted me to take care of you, and that's what I'm going to do. And if I accept, what would my role be here? Your role would be to be part of this family, to help raise your daughters with love and dignity. And Tyler? Tyler would be welcome too. When he's ready to leave the clinic, he'll always have a place here." Grace's eyes filled with tears once again. "Julian, I don't know what to say." "Say yes. For Claire, for your children, for us." Grace smiled through her tears. "Yes." That night, Julian called Marcus to cancel the investigation on Grace. He also asked him to investigate Victoria's activities more thoroughly. He had a feeling his sister-in-law wouldn't give up her plans easily. Marcus confirmed Julian's suspicions. Victoria had indeed tried to negotiate parts of the family property with investors, claiming to have power of attorney to represent Julian's interests. She had also tried to transfer some company shares to accounts in her name. "Julian, your sister-in-law committed several crimes. Do you want me to take this information to the authorities?" "Not for now, Marcus. First, I'll give her a chance to explain herself. But I want you to document everything properly." Julian decided to confront Victoria personally before taking any drastic measures. After all, she was the mother of his nephews, and he didn't want to harm the children. The next day, Julian went to Victoria's house. She lived in a luxury apartment in Gramercy Park, maintained with the money from the inheritance of Julian's brother. "Julian, what a surprise! I hope you've come to apologize for the way you treated me yesterday. Actually, I came here to give you one last chance to explain yourself." "Explain what?" "About your attempts to sell family properties without my authorization. About the company shares you tried to transfer to your name." Victoria's face turned pale. "How did you know?" "I have my resources, Victoria. The question is, why did you do it?" Victoria sat down heavily on the living room sofa. "Julian, you don't understand the difficult situation I'm in." "What difficult situation?" "You receive a generous allowance from my brother's inheritance. You have a house, a car, everything paid for. But what about my children's future? What if something happens to you? Who will ensure their well-being?" "Victoria, my nephews will always be taken care of, you know that. But that doesn't give you the right to steal from the family." "I wasn't stealing. I was ensuring that my children got what is rightfully theirs." "And what is rightfully theirs?" "Their father's inheritance. Julian, your nephews are the only legitimate heirs of the Sterling family." Julian felt a tightness in his chest as he realized where Victoria was going. "Victoria, are you implying that Grace and her children have no right to anything?" Exactly. She is nothing to this family. She's just a gold digger who managed to fool Claire. Grace is my wife's sister. That makes her part of our family. Not legally, Julian. Legally, she has no right to anything. Julian realized that Victoria had thought of everything. She really believed she could push Grace away and keep everything for her children. Victoria, I'm going to make you an offer. Stop these schemes now and I'll pretend nothing happened. Continue, and I'll take everything I know to the authorities. Julian, you're making a mistake. That woman will destroy our family. The only person destroying our family is you, Victoria. Julian left Victoria's house knowing that the problems were far from over. His sister-in-law was not the type of person who gave up easily. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. When Julian got home, he found Grace in the kitchen preparing dinner. She had changed her routine, now cooking as part of the family and no longer as a maid. How did the conversation with Victoria go? Complicated. She's not going to give up on her plans easily. Julian, maybe I should find another place to live. I don't want to cause problems for you. Grace, you're not going anywhere. This is your home now. But if Victoria is causing trouble, to hell with Victoria. She can find another place if she doesn't like the situation. Grace smiled, but Julian could see the worry in her eyes. And if she tries to do something against me or the boys, she won't succeed. I'll protect you all. That night, Julian had trouble sleeping. He kept thinking about how Claire managed to keep so many secrets during their marriage. Were there other things he didn't know about his wife? The next day, Julian decided to visit Claire's grave. He hadn't been to the cemetery for months, and he felt he needed to talk to her about everything that was happening. When he arrived at the family plot, Julian had a surprise. There were fresh flowers on Claire's grave and a folded letter beside them. Julian picked up the letter and read, "Dear sister, today I told Julian everything. He knows who I am and why you helped me. He's as good as you said. He's taking care of me and the baby as you asked. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for giving me a family. Your loving sister, Grace." Julian felt his eyes fill with tears. He tucked the letter in his pocket and knelt before Claire's grave. "Claire, my love, forgive me for not understanding your secrets sooner. I promise I'll take care of Grace and your children as you wanted. I promise I won't let anyone hurt them." Julian stayed silent for a few minutes, feeling Claire's comforting presence beside him. When he stood up to leave, he noticed a woman watching him from a distance. It was Victoria. "How long have you been there, Victoria?" "Long enough to hear your romantic promises." "What do you want?" "I want you to understand that you're making a mistake, Julian. That woman is using Claire's memory to manipulate you. Victoria, I've told you to stop this." "Julian, open your eyes. Do you think it's a coincidence that Grace showed up in your life right after Claire died?" "Grace has worked for me for 2 years. "Yes, exactly. She planned everything. She got the job to get close to you, and now she's faking this pregnancy to secure a place in the family." Julian felt rage boil inside him. "Victoria, you've crossed every line. Grace isn't faking anything. And even if she were, that wouldn't give you the right to try to steal from the family." "I'm not stealing. I'm protecting what's ours." "Ours? Victoria, you don't own anything in this family. You're just my brother's widow, and you only get an allowance out of my generosity." Victoria's face turned red with anger. "Julian, you'll regret treating me this way. I'll prove that woman is a fraud." "Good luck trying. And Victoria, if you try to harm Grace or the children in any way, I guarantee you'll have serious problems." Julian left the cemetery certain that he needed to take more drastic measures to protect Grace. Victoria was getting more and more obsessed and could become dangerous. On the way home, Julian stopped at a legal office to make some changes to his will. He decided it was time to formalize Grace's and her children's status as beneficiaries of his inheritance. The family lawyer, Dr. Bernard Finch, was surprised by Julian's requests. "Julian, are you sure you want to include these people in your will? They are not blood relatives of yours." "Dr. Bernard, Grace is the sister of my late wife." "That makes her family." "Yes, but legally she has no automatic rights to your inheritance." That's why I'm making sure to include her formally. And your nephews, how will they react to this change? My nephews will remain beneficiaries, but I want Grace and her children to be protected too. Dr. Bernard made the necessary notes and promised to have the documents ready in a week. When Julian got home, he found Grace sitting in the living room crying softly. When she saw him, she tried to hide the tears. What happened, Grace? Victoria was here. Julian felt his blood boil. What did she do? She said awful things. She said I'm a gold digger, that I'm using Claire's memory to benefit myself. Grace, don't listen to her. Victoria is angry because her plans to take over the family inheritance were discovered. She said she'll prove I lied about everything, that she'll hire another detective to investigate my life. Let her investigate all she wants. There's nothing to hide, is there? Grace hesitated before answering. There is one thing I didn't tell you. Julian's heart raced. What is it? It's about the father of the baby I'm carrying. Julian sat down next to Grace. What about him? I know who the father is. I lied when I said I didn't. Why did you lie? Because it's complicated. The father is married and has an important position. If he finds out about the baby, he might try to take the child away from me. Julian breathed a sigh of relief. It wasn't as serious as he had imagined. Grace, that doesn't change anything. What matters is that you and the baby are fine. Thank you for understanding. I was afraid to tell you. You can tell me anything, Grace. We're family now. At that moment, the phone rang. Julian answered and heard Marcus's tense voice. Julian, I need to talk to you urgently. It's about your sister-in-law. What has she done now? She hired another detective to investigate Grace, and this detective has no scruples. He's willing to fabricate evidence if necessary. Julian felt a chill run down his spine. How did you find out? The guy offered me a partnership. He said with fake evidence we could frame Grace and split Victoria's payment. And did you accept? Of course not. But I pretended to accept to find out their plans. What plans? They intend to plant stolen items in Grace's house and then report her to the police. They want to pin her for theft. Julian was furious. Victoria had crossed every possible line. Marcus, I need you to document all of this. Document all. And I need you to help me protect Grace. I'm already working on it. But Julian, you need to keep an eye out. They might try anything. After hanging up, Julian told Grace about Victoria's plans. She turned pale and started trembling. Julian, maybe I should leave. I don't want you to get into trouble because of me. Grace, you're not going anywhere. Victoria is the one who'll have trouble if she tries to carry out this plan. But what if she succeeds? What if I get arrested? That won't happen. I'll protect you. Julian spent the whole night planning how to protect Grace from Victoria's schemes. He decided it was time to take preventive measures. The next day, Julian hired security guards to watch his house and also to accompany Grace when she needed to go out. He also installed security cameras in every room of the house. Victoria didn't take long to try to execute her plan. 3 days later, an unknown man tried to enter the property claiming to be a technician from a phone company. Julian's security guards didn't let him in and recorded everything on video. Marcus confirmed that the man was the detective hired by Victoria. He was trying to enter the house to plant false evidence. Julian decided it was time to finally confront Victoria. He gathered all the evidence of her schemes and scheduled a meeting in his office. Victoria, you have 2 options. Stop these games right now, or I hand over everything I know to the authorities. Julian, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Victoria. I have evidence of all your attempts to frame Grace. Julian showed Victoria the recordings of the detective trying to break into his home, the records of the attempts to illegally sell properties, and the recorded conversations where she offered bribes to Marcus. Victoria was silent for a few minutes, realizing she had been caught red-handed. Julian, you don't understand. I did all of this for my children. Your children don't need this, Victoria. They already have a comfortable future secured with their father's inheritance. But what if you decide to leave everything to that woman and her bastards? Julian stood up from his chair, furious at the comment. Victoria, you just sealed your fate. I will not tolerate you calling Grace's children bastards. Julian, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to... Didn't mean to what? Reveal your true character? Julian picked up the phone and called Dr. Bernard. Doctor, I want you to prepare all the documents to remove Victoria as a beneficiary of any family inheritance. And I want to sue her for attempted fraud. Victoria became desperate. Julian, don't do this. Think of your nieces and nephews. I am thinking of them. They deserve a better mother. Julian, I beg you, give me one more chance. You've already had plenty of chances, Victoria, and you chose to waste every single one. Julian called the security guards to escort Victoria to the exit. Before she left, he gave one last warning. Victoria, if you try to approach Grace or me again, I guarantee you'll be arrested, and your children will grow up knowing exactly what kind of mother they have. After Victoria left, Julian felt relieved. He had finally rid himself of his sister-in-law's toxic influence and could focus on taking care of Grace and her family. When Julian arrived home that afternoon, he found Grace in the kitchen baking a cake. She was humming softly, one hand resting on her already prominent belly. What's that wonderful smell? Chocolate cake. It was Claire's favorite, wasn't it? It was. How did you know? She taught me the recipe. She said it was her favorite way to show affection. Julian smiled, remembering how many times Claire had made that same cake for him. Grace, I took care of the situation with Victoria. She won't bother you anymore. What did you do? I presented evidence of her crimes to my lawyer. She'll be sued and has lost all rights to the family inheritance. Grace looked worried. And your nieces and nephews? They will continue to be taken care of, but through a trust managed by me, not Victoria. Julian, are you sure this is the right thing? She's their mother. Grace, you have such a good heart. But Victoria has shown she doesn't deserve the trust I placed in her. And now, what happens next? Now we focus on what really matters. Your pregnancy, the birth of Claire, Tyler's future. Speaking of Tyler, he called today. He's doing great. He got a promotion at the shop where he works. Julian smiled. That's wonderful news. When does he leave the New Dawn Recovery Center? Next month. He's really excited to meet you and to meet his baby sister. It will be a joy to have him here. Julian, can I ask you something? Of course. Aren't you afraid people will say you're being fooled, like Victoria used to say? Julian thought for a few seconds before answering. Grace, I've learned that other people's opinions don't matter when we know we're doing what's right. And taking care of you and your children is the rightest thing I've ever done in my life. Thank you for giving me a chance to have a real family. Thank you for giving me a chance to be part of a real family again. That night, Julian slept better than he had in years. For the first time since Claire Sterling left, he felt that his home was truly complete. In the following weeks, Julian dedicated himself to preparing the house for Claire Harper's arrival. He remodeled one of the rooms, turning it into a cozy nursery. He also prepared a room for Tyler for when he left the clinic. Grace was touched by all the care Julian was taking. She had never imagined she could have such a peaceful and happy life. One day, while they were organizing the nursery together, Grace told Julian more details about her life. You know, I almost gave up looking for Claire Harper. Why? Because I was afraid she wouldn't want to meet me. After all, she had a very different life from mine. But you found each other. It was by chance. I was cleaning the building where she was having therapy. When I saw her in the waiting room, I immediately recognized her eyes. They're just like mine. Julian looked at Grace's eyes and really saw the resemblance to Claire Harper. And how was the reunion? Magical. She recognized me at the same time. We started talking and never stopped. It was as if we had never been separated. Why were you separated as children? Our parents had problems with alcohol. They couldn't take care of two children. Claire was adopted first because she was younger and easier to care for. I stayed longer in the shelter until I found a family. It must have been very hard for two children. It was. But Claire always said our separation had a purpose, that one day we would find each other again and be stronger for having gone through all that. Julian was moved by the story. Claire Harper really had been a special woman, capable of finding meaning even in the most difficult moments of life. Grace, I have a question that might be indiscreet. Go ahead. Claire Harper's father, do you know who he is? Grace hesitated before answering. Yes, I know, but I promised Claire I would never reveal it. Does he know about the baby? No, and I prefer it stays that way. Julian respected Grace's wish to keep the secret. After all, she had a right to her privacy. At the end of the month, Tyler finally got discharged from the rehab clinic. Julian went with Grace to pick up the young man, eager to meet the eldest son of his new sister. Tyler was a tall, slim young man with the same brown eyes as Grace and Claire Harper. He was visibly nervous about meeting Julian. Mom, are you sure he doesn't mind my past? Tyler, Julian is a very good person. He understands that everyone deserves a second chance. When Julian introduced himself to Tyler, he noticed the firmness of the young man's handshake. Tyler, your mother talks a lot about you. I look forward to getting to know you better. Thank you for taking care of my mother, Mr. Julian. Just call me Julian, and your mother is the one taking care of me. On the way home, Tyler talked about his plans now that he was clean. I want to keep working at the shop and take a technical mechanics course. I also want to help other young people who are going through what I went through. Those are great plans, Tyler. I'll support you in everything you need. Julian, can I ask a question? Sure. Why are you doing all this for us? I mean, we're nothing to you. Julian stopped the car and turned to Tyler. Tyler, you are Claire Sterling's family, and Claire was everything to me. Taking care of you is a way to honor her memory. Tyler was moved by the answer. Thank you. I promise I won't let you down. Tyler, you've already been through the hardest part. From now on, it only gets better. When they got home, Julian showed Gabriel the room he had prepared for him. The young man was impressed by the care Julian had taken in personalizing the space. Mum, did you see? There's even a bookshelf for my books. Julian set everything up with you in mind. Gabriel turned to Julian with teary eyes. No one has ever done anything like this for me. Gabriel, you're part of this family now, and families take care of each other. That night during dinner, Julian watched Grace and Gabriel chatting animatedly about the young man's plans. For the first time in years, his home was full of life and hope. 2 weeks later, Grace went into labor. It was a rainy, stormy night, and Julian had to drive under difficult conditions to get to the hospital. Julian, I'm scared, Grace said between contractions. Don't be scared. Everything will be fine. Claire is watching over both of you. Gabriel sat in the back seat, holding his mother's hand and trying to keep her calm. Mum, remember what Aunt Claire always said? That you're the strongest woman she ever knew. Grace smiled through the pain. She did say that. At the hospital, Julian handled all the paperwork while Gabriel stayed with Grace. After 8 hours of labor, Claire was born healthy and perfect. When Julian saw the baby for the first time, he was moved by how much she looked like his wife. The same big expressive eyes, the same shape of the face. She's beautiful, Grace. She has Aunt Claire's eyes. Gabriel held his little sister carefully, emotional. Hi, Claire. I'm your brother Gabriel. I'm going to take really good care of you. Julian watched the scene with a full heart. This was the family Claire had always dreamed of for them. In the months that followed, the house filled with laughter and joy with little Claire's presence. Gabriel proved to be a devoted and loving brother, always willing to help with the baby. Julian discovered the joy of being a father figure. He woke up in the middle of the night to help with bottles, carried Claire around when she was fussy, and melted at every smile from the little girl. Grace blossomed in her new role as a mother in a stable family. She had time to devote herself fully to Claire, and could also keep a closer eye on Gabriel's recovery. One day, 6 months after Claire's birth, Julian received an unexpected call. It was Victoria. Julian, I need to talk to you. It's about my children. What about them? They're asking questions about why they don't go to your house anymore. I don't know what to tell them anymore. Julian sighed. He knew he'd have to deal with this situation sooner or later. Victoria, you know exactly why they're no longer welcome in my home. Julian, I know I made mistakes, but my children aren't to blame for that. You're right. They aren't to blame. That's why I set up a fund to secure their future, managed by trusted people. I wish they could meet the new family you've built. Julian thought for a few minutes. His nieces and nephews really weren't to blame for their mother's mistakes. All right, they can come visit next weekend, but you are not stepping foot in my house. Thank you, Julian. This means a lot to them. The following weekend, Julian's nieces and nephews came for a visit. The children, ages 8 and 10, were delighted by baby Claire and quickly grew fond of Gabriel and Grace. Uncle Julian, why can't our mum come into your house? Asked the older one. Julian chose his words carefully, because sometimes adults make mistakes that have consequences, but that doesn't change how much I love you. The children spent the day playing and having fun. When they left, they asked to come back the next week. Julian talked to Grace about the situation. Do you mind if they come regularly? Of course not. They're your nephews, and it's important for them to stay in touch with you. Thank you for being so understanding. Julian, that's what family is. Sometimes we have to deal with complicated situations, but always with love. Over time, Julian established a routine of visits with his nephews. The kids loved coming to the house and playing with Claire. Tyler became like an older brother to them. 1 year after Claire's birth, Julian organized a party to celebrate the little girl's first birthday. He invited friends, co-workers, and even some neighbors who had grown fond of the family. During the party, Julian gave an emotional speech. 2 years ago, I lived alone in this house, holding on to memories and living in the past. Today, this house is full of life, love, and hope. Claire brought Grace and Tyler into my life, and they brought little Claire. I am a blessed man to have this family. Grace was moved by Julian's words. Julian, you're the one who gave us the chance to have a real family. Thank you for opening your home and your heart to us. Tyler also wanted to speak. Julian, you gave me a second chance when I needed it most. You showed me that it's possible to start over and build something beautiful. I'm grateful to be part of this family. Little Claire, sitting on Julian's lap, clapped her hands as if she understood the importance of the moment. Everyone laughed, and the party continued with even more joy. That night, after all the guests had left, Julian sat on the porch of his house watching the stars. Grace joined him, carrying Claire, who had just woken up. What are you thinking about? She asked. I'm thinking about how life can change unexpectedly. 2 years ago, I never would have imagined I'd be living this reality. Do you regret anything? Julian thought for a moment before answering. I regret not finding out about you sooner. Claire could have lived knowing the two of you were together again. She knew Julian, and she knew you would take care of me if anything happened to her. How could she be so sure? Because she knew your heart. She said you were a man who always put family first. Julian smiled, remembering all the times Claire had said that to him. Grace, can I ask a personal question? Sure. Do you plan to tell Claire who her father is when she grows up? Grace looked at her daughter sleeping in her arms. I haven't decided yet. It depends on a lot of things. If you decide to tell her, you have my support. And if you decide not to, you also have my support. Thank you for respecting my decision. Grace, you're an amazing mother. Claire will grow up knowing how loved she is. In the years that followed, the family that Julian and Grace built continued to thrive. Tyler finished his technical course in mechanics and opened his own auto repair shop with Julian's help. He also regularly volunteered at the New Dawn Recovery Center where he had been treated, helping other young people in recovery. Little Claire grew up surrounded by love and attention. Julian proved to be a present and caring father, participating in every stage of the girl's development. She called him Daddy Julian, and he got emotional every time he heard it. Grace found her calling helping Julian with his businesses. She had a natural ability to deal with people and became a key figure in the family company. One Sunday afternoon, 3 years after Claire's birth, Julian was playing in the garden with the girl when she asked a question that caught him off guard. Daddy Julian, why don't I have the same last name as you? Julian looked at Grace, who was watching the scene from the porch. She nodded, indicating he could answer. Claire, would you like to have the same last name as me? Yes, then I'd be your real daughter. Julian felt his heart tighten with emotion. You already are my real daughter, Claire, but if you want, we can arrange for you to have my last name. Really? I can be Claire Sterling? Yes, you can, my love. Claire ran off to tell Grace and Tyler, shouting with joy. Julian followed, moved by the child's innocence and pure love. That night, Julian talked to Grace about Claire's request. Would you mind if I officially adopt Claire? Julian, it would be an honor. But are you sure? Adoption is a lifelong commitment. Grace, I made that commitment the day she was born. The paperwork is just a formality. Then let's arrange it. Claire will be very happy. The adoption process was quick, since Julian had all the necessary resources. 6 months later, Claire officially became Claire Sterling, daughter of Julian and Grace. The day the adoption was finalized was one of the most emotional days of Julian's life. Seeing Claire's name officially registered as his daughter filled him with a joy he hadn't known was possible to feel. Tyler also asked to have the Sterling surname, and Julian was honored to include him in the adoption process. After all, Tyler had been like a son to him for years. With the family officially established, Julian decided it was time to make another important change. He wanted to marry Grace. It wasn't just a legal or social matter. Julian had realized that his feelings for Grace had evolved far beyond family responsibility. He truly loved her and wanted to spend the rest of his life by her side. On a special evening, Julian arranged a romantic dinner for two on the balcony of the house. Tyler had taken Claire to sleep at the cousin's house, giving the couple privacy. Grace, I have something important to talk to you about. I'm listening. Julian stood up and took a small velvet box from his pocket. Grace, in the past few years, you've completely transformed my life. You've brought joy, love, and purpose to days I thought would always be empty. Grace was breathless at the sight of the box. Julian, let me finish. I know our story started in an unconventional way. I know you came into my life through Claire, but what I feel for you is real and true. Julian knelt before Grace and opened the box, revealing an elegant and discreet engagement ring. Grace Ann Miller Harper, will you marry me? Tears streamed down Grace's face before she could even answer. Julian, I wasn't expecting this. I know it might seem sudden, but I don't want to waste any more time pretending we're just family. I love you, Grace. I love you too, Julian. Yes, I will marry you. Julian slid the ring onto Grace's finger and kissed her softly. It was a kiss full of promises and hope for the future. When Tyler and Claire found out about the engagement, they were ecstatic. Claire immediately started planning what the party would be like, while Tyler offered to help with all the preparations. Mum, now I'll have a real dad too, said Claire, emotional. Tyler, you've had a real dad for a long time, Julian said, hugging the young man. The wedding was set for 6 months later, enough time to organize an intimate but special celebration. Julian wanted it to be an unforgettable day for the whole family. Grace chose a simple yet elegant dress, and Julian opted for a classic suit. The ceremony would be held in the garden of the estate, under a pergola decorated with white flowers and foliage. On the day of the wedding, Julian woke up with a feeling of peace and wholeness he hadn't felt in years. I was ready to officially start a new life with the woman I loved, and with the children I chose. Grace was radiant in her white dress. Tyler walked her down the aisle, proud to give his mother away to the man who had become his father. Claire was the flower girl, scattering rose petals along the path. She wore a light pink dress and couldn't stop smiling. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to hit the like button and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing on. During the ceremony, Julian and Grace exchanged vows they had written themselves. Grace, said Julian, I promise to love and take care of you every day of my life. I promise to be the father that Claire and Tyler deserve. I promise to honor the memory of Claire Sterling, who brought us together. Julian, Grace replied, I promise to make you happy every day. I promise to take care of this family we've built with so much love. I promise we will never forget where we came from and how we got here. When the celebrant declared them husband and wife, Julian kissed Grace with all the love he had kept in his heart. Tyler and Claire cheered enthusiastically, along with the few guests in attendance. The celebration was small but joyful. Close friends, a few co-workers, neighbors who had become family friends, and even Julian's nieces and nephews were present. During dinner, Julian gave an emotional toast. 5 years ago, I thought my life was over when I lost Claire Sterling. I never imagined there could be a better tomorrow. Today I can say I've found a different kind of love, but just as true. Grace taught me that it's possible to start over without forgetting the past. Grace also wanted to speak. Julian gave me something I never thought I could have: a stable family, true love, and the certainty that my children will have a better future. Thank you for opening your home and your heart to us. Tyler asked for permission to speak as well. Julian, you saved me when I needed it most. You gave me a second chance and showed me how to be a real man. Thank you for taking care of my mom and my sister. Little Claire, only 4 years old, also wanted to speak, drawing laughter from everyone. I love Daddy Julian and Mommy, and I love Tyler. We are a happy family. The party continued late into the night with music, dancing, and lots of joy. Julian danced with Grace, with Claire, and even with Tyler, who had become a confident and cheerful young man. When all the guests had left and the children were asleep, Julian and Grace sat on the porch to look at the stars. "How do you feel, Mrs. Sterling?" "Complete," Grace answered, smiling. "And you?" "At peace. Finally, at peace." "Julian, can I confess something?" "Of course. I always dreamed of a moment like this. But I never believed it could come true." "Why not?" "Because people like me, with my past, usually don't get happy endings." Julian took Grace's hand and kissed it softly. "Grace, your past brought you here. It made you the strong, incredible woman you are today. Never be ashamed of where you came from. Claire Sterling used to say the same thing. She was right, and if she could see you today, she'd be proud. Do you think she would approve of our marriage?" Julian looked at the stars before answering. "I'm sure she would. Claire always wanted me to be happy, and she loved you like a sister. Our love honors her memory." In the years that followed the wedding, the Sterling family continued to thrive. Tyler graduated in mechanical engineering and expanded his workshop, becoming a successful businessman. He also married a young nurse he met during one of his volunteer jobs at the New Dawn Recovery Center. Claire grew up to be an intelligent and charismatic girl. She inherited her sensitivity from her mother and her determination from Julian. At school, she was one of the best students and always helped classmates who were struggling. Grace found fulfillment as a wife and mother, but also as a professional. She took on an important role in Julian's company and proved to be an excellent administrator. Her life experience made her especially skilled at dealing with employees from different social backgrounds. Julian discovered a new dimension of happiness he didn't know was possible. Being a father and husband brought renewed purpose to his life. He cut back on his work hours to spend more time with his family and never regretted that decision. On a Saturday afternoon, 7 years after the wedding, Julian was helping Claire with a school project about family history when she asked a question that surprised him. "Dad, did you ever meet my biological father?" Julian stopped what he was doing and looked at the 11-year-old girl who had become his whole life. "Why do you want to know about that, Claire?" "Just curious. The girls at school were talking about biological fathers and I started thinking." Julian looked at Grace, who was in the kitchen preparing lunch. She nodded, signaling that he could answer. "Claire, your biological father isn't part of our lives. What matters is that you have a family that loves you very much." "I know, Dad. I was just curious. But you're my real dad." Julian was moved by the girl's mature response. "And you're my real daughter, Claire. Nothing will change that. Dad, can I ask another question?" "Go ahead. Do you miss Aunt Claire?" Julian smiled as he realized his daughter was referring to his first wife as Aunt Claire, a loving term the family had adopted to tell them apart. "I do, Claire. She was a very special person in my life, but I've learned that it's possible to keep the good memories and still be happy in the present. Mom said that Aunt Claire protects me from heaven. And she does. She really wanted you to be happy." Claire hugged Julian tightly. "Thank you for being my dad, Dad. Thank you for being my daughter, my little girl." That night, Julian talked to Grace about the conversation he had with Claire. "Do you think we should tell her the truth about her father?" "Not yet, Julian. When she's older, if she wants to know, I'll tell her. But for now, she has everything she needs. What if she finds out on her own? If that happens, we'll deal with it. But I'm not going to force a revelation that might complicate her life." Julian respected Grace's decision. After all, she knew her daughter better than anyone and knew the right timing for everything. 2 years later, when Claire was 13, she discovered the identity of her biological father in an unexpected way. During Tyler's graduation party, she met a family friend who was a doctor and made a casual comment about her resemblance to someone he knew. Claire was smart enough to ask casual questions and, through small clues, managed to find out that her biological father was a well-known doctor in the city, married with other children. When she confronted Grace with this discovery, her mother was surprised but didn't deny the truth. "How did you find out, Claire?" "I asked questions. I researched. It wasn't hard to put the pieces together." "And what do you plan to do with this information?" Claire thought for a few minutes before answering. "Nothing, I just wanted to know. But my dad is Daddy Julian. He always was and always will be." Grace was proud of her daughter's maturity. "Are you sure you don't want to meet him?" "I'm sure. He had the chance to be my father and he didn't want to. Daddy Julian chose to be my dad. That's different." When Julian heard about this conversation, he was moved by Claire's choice. She had had the opportunity to seek out her biological father, but she preferred to keep the family she had. "Claire, if you change your mind in the future, you have my support." "Thank you, Dad. But I won't change my mind. You are my real father." The following years were a time of growth and new discoveries for the whole family. Tyler became a father of twins, making Julian and Grace proud grandparents. Claire excelled in her studies and decided to pursue a career in medicine, inspired by the volunteer work she did with her brother. Julian, now in his 60s, began to think about partial retirement. He wanted to spend more time with his family and perhaps travel with Grace to places they had always dreamed of seeing. One special evening, 10 years after the wedding, Julian arranged a surprise for Grace. He took her to dinner at the same restaurant where they had celebrated their engagement, and there he made a revelation that left her emotional. "Grace, I have a surprise for you." "What is it?" Julian handed her a sealed envelope. Inside were documents for a trip to Europe. "I've always dreamed of seeing Italy, and I want to see it with you." "Julian, that's wonderful. But what about the kids?" "Tyler and his wife have already offered to take care of Claire, and she's excited to be the babysitter for her twin nephews." "When are we going?" "Next month, 15 days just for us, seeing beautiful places and enjoying each other's company." Grace threw herself into Julian's arms, emotional. "Thank you for making all my dreams come true. Thank you for teaching me to dream again." The trip to Italy was everything Julian and Grace had imagined and more. They visited Rome, Florence, Venice, and small towns in the countryside. They walked hand in hand through historic streets, tasted delicious wines, and fell in love again with each other and with life. In Venice, during a gondola ride at sunset, Julian made a reflection that deeply touched Grace. "You know what's the most incredible thing about all this?" "What?" "It's that I found you through the pain of loss. Claire brought you into my life even after she passed. It's as if her love was so strong that it continued to take care of me even from a distance." "Julian, do you think we're betraying her memory by being so happy?" Julian thought for a moment before answering. "No, Grace. I think we're honoring her memory. Claire always wanted me to be happy. And you. You are proof that her love for us was greater than anything." When they returned to the United States, Julian and Grace found the family eager to hear all the travel stories. Claire had taken very good care of the baby nephews, and Tyler had kept everything running perfectly. "How was the belated honeymoon?" joked Tyler. "Perfect," replied Julian, "and it made me realize that I want to spend even more time with you all." "What do you mean?" asked Claire. "I mean, I'm thinking about partially retiring. Spend more time at home, travel with you, be a more present grandfather." "Really, Dad? You'll be home more?" Claire got excited. Yes, I will. I've worked enough for several lifetimes. Now I want to enjoy the family we've built. In the following months, Julian began to delegate more responsibilities at the company and gradually reduce his workload. Grace took on an even more important role in the business, proving to be a born leader. Tyler expanded his business and became one of the most respected mechanics in the city. He never forgot his roots and always maintained social programs to help at-risk youth. Claire, at 16, was a well-balanced and determined teenager. She kept excellent grades at school and dedicated part of her free time to volunteer work in hospitals and clinics. On a Sunday afternoon, the family was gathered in the garden of their home for a barbecue. The small grandchildren played on the grass while the adults talked and laughed. Julian watched the scene with a smile on his face. "What are you thinking about?" asked Grace, sitting down beside him. "I'm thinking about how blessed we are." "Look at that," he said, pointing at the children playing. Tyler happy with his family. Claire growing up strong and healthy. The two of us fulfilled. It's more than I ever could have dreamed. "Julian, can I confess something?" "Always." "Sometimes I wake up in the morning and can't believe this life is real. It seems too much like a dream for a woman who has been through so much." "It's not a dream, Grace. It's the life we deserve after so much suffering." Claire Harper always used to say that the hard things in life are just preparation for even greater moments of happiness. She was right, as always. Tyler approached them with one of his children in his arms. "Dad, Mom, I have news for you." "What news?" asked Julian. "We've decided to build our house on the back lot. We want to stay close to you." Julian and Grace looked at each other, emotional. "Tyler, are you sure? Don't you want more privacy?" asked Grace. "Mom, that's what family is. It's being together. Besides, my kids deserve to grow up near their grandparents." Claire, who had been listening to the conversation, joined the group. "What about me? When I get married, am I going to build a house here in the backyard too?" Everyone laughed at the teenager's question. "When you get married, Claire, we'll see," said Julian. "For now, focus on your studies." "I am focusing, Dad. But I already know I want to be a doctor and have a big family like ours." "Great plans, sweetheart." That night, after everyone had gone home, Julian and Grace walked through the gardens of their property, imagining what it would be like to have Tyler and his family living nearby. "Do you mind having less privacy?" asked Julian. "Of course not. Actually, I think it'll be wonderful. The kids will grow up together. We'll be able to help more with the grandchildren. We'll have even more life in this house. And when Claire leaves for college, will you miss her?" "A lot. But I know she'll be successful and happy. That's what matters." "Grace, have you ever thought about having another child?" The question caught Grace by surprise. "Julian, do you want more children?" "I don't know. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to have a child of our own, biologically ours." Grace stopped walking and looked directly at Julian. "Julian, Claire, and Tyler are our children. The fact that they aren't biologically yours doesn't change anything." "I know that, Grace, and it wouldn't change anything in my relationship with them. It was just a curiosity." "Well, if you really want to know, at 47 a new pregnancy would be complicated for me. And honestly, our family is already perfect as it is." Julian laughed and kissed Grace on the forehead. "You're right. Our family is already perfect." 2 years later, when Claire turned 18, the family organized a special party to celebrate. It was an important milestone. She was graduating from high school and preparing to enter medical school. During the party, Claire gave a speech that moved everyone. "I want to thank all the people who are here today, especially to my father Julian and my mother Grace, who gave me everything I could dream of: love, education, values, and an incredible family." She looked directly at Julian. "Dad, you chose to love me when you had no obligation to do so. That made me the person I am today. Thank you for being the best father in the world." Julian couldn't hold back the tears. He stood up and hugged Claire tightly. "Thank you for giving me the chance to be your father." "Mum," Claire continued, looking at Grace, "thank you for being so strong and for fighting so hard to give me a better future. I hope to be half the woman you are." Gabriel was also mentioned in the speech. "Gabriel, thank you for being the best brother in the world, for taking care of me, for teaching me to be strong, for being my hero." The party went on late into the night, with music, dancing, and lots of funny stories about Claire as a child. Julian watched it all with a heart full of pride and gratitude. When Claire left for college, the house grew quieter, but not empty. Tyler and his family had already moved into the back house, and the grandchildren kept the property full of life. Julian finally fully retired and began dedicating himself to social projects. Together with Grace, he created a foundation to help young people in vulnerable situations, especially those struggling with substance abuse. The Claire Sterling Foundation, a name chosen to honor the two Claires in the family, became a reference point in the city and helped hundreds of families over the years. Tyler became one of the foundation's main contributors, offering job opportunities for young people in recovery. Claire, even far away studying medicine, always found time to take part in fundraising campaigns and charity events. One winter evening, 5 years after Claire started college, Julian received a phone call that left him very emotional. "Dad, I have news for you." "What news, Claire?" "I got accepted into the pediatric residency program at Metro General Hospital." Julian was ecstatic. "Claire, what wonderful news. I'm so proud of you. Dad, I want you to know I chose pediatrics because of you. You taught me that taking care of children is one of the most important things in the world." "Claire, you're going to be an incredible doctor." "I hope so, Dad. I want to help children the way you helped me." When Julian told Grace the news, she was just as emotional as he was. "Julian, our daughter is going to be a doctor. The little girl born on a stormy night is going to save lives." "Grace, Claire always had a special destiny. Ever since she was born, I knew she would do important things. Aunt Claire would be so proud." "She would. And I'm sure she is, wherever she is." The following year, Claire graduated from medical school with the highest grades in her class. The whole family was present at the graduation ceremony, standing and applauding as she received her diploma. During the graduation party, the class speaker gave a speech about medical vocation and mentioned Claire as an example of determination and dedication. Claire Sterling represents the best of medicine, technical skill combined with human sensitivity. She proved throughout college that her calling goes far beyond scientific knowledge. Julian turned to Grace and whispered, "Did you hear that? Our daughter is being recognized as a role model." "I always knew she would be special," Grace replied, her eyes shining with pride. After graduation, Claire came home for a few weeks before starting her residency. Those were precious moments for the family, which hadn't been fully together in years. One evening, Claire asked to speak with Julian alone. "Dad, I want to tell you something." "I'm listening." "During college, I met my biological father." Julian felt his heart race. "How was it?" "It was interesting. He really is a respected doctor, just like Mom always said." "And what happened when you met?" "He was surprised. He didn't expect to see me. We talked for a few minutes, and he was polite, but distant." "How did you feel?" Claire thought before answering. "Relieved, actually. I confirmed I didn't miss out on anything important. He may have given me life biologically, but you gave me everything that truly matters." Julian was moved by her answer. "Claire, thank you for telling me. It must have been hard for you." "It was eye-opening. Now I know for sure that I made the right decision years ago. You're my real father, and nothing will ever change that. And I'm the luckiest man in the world to be your father." When Claire started her medical residency, Julian and Grace entered a new phase of their lives. With their children grown and independent, they were able to rediscover themselves as a couple and enjoy each other's company even more. They traveled to places they had always wanted to see, spent more time with their grandchildren, and dedicated themselves intensely to the Foundation's work. Julian discovered that retirement wasn't boredom, but freedom to do what really mattered. Grace, at 55, was more beautiful and confident than ever. Years of happiness had erased the marks of suffering from her face, replacing them with laugh lines caused by smiling. On a quiet afternoon, They were in the garden watching their grandchildren play when Grace made a deep reflection. "Julian, have you ever stopped to think how different our lives could have been if you hadn't followed me that day?" "I think about it sometimes. I'd probably be alone and bitter, and you'd be struggling alone with your difficulties. And Claire would have grown up without knowing a real father's love, and Tyler might not have been able to fully recover. It's amazing how a moment of suspicion can lead to so many blessings." Julian laughed. "True, my suspicion brought the greatest joy of my life. Julian, can I ask you something I've always been curious about?" "Of course. Do you feel that you replaced Claire with me, or is it a different kind of love?" Julian thought carefully before answering, because he knew it was a delicate and important question. "Grace, the love I have for you is completely different from what I felt for Claire. It's not a replacement, it's a new love. Claire taught me how to love deeply. You taught me that it's possible to love again in a different way, but just as true. Thank you for always being so honest with me. Grace, you changed my definition of love. With Claire, I loved the past and the present. With you, I love the present and the future." That night, they made love with the passion and tenderness of a couple who had found in each other not just a companion, but a partner for life. The years that followed were a time of continuous growth for the whole family. Claire specialized in pediatric oncology and quickly became one of the most respected doctors at the hospital. Her dedication to children with cancer was recognized by everyone. Tyler expanded his business again and became a successful small entrepreneur. His children grew up in a loving and stable environment, surrounded by caring grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Julian and Grace traveled to exotic places, experienced different cultures, and lived adventures they never imagined were possible. But they always returned home with joy, knowing that their true treasure was there. One spring morning, 10 years after Claire's medical school graduation, Julian woke up with a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't pain, but a kind of tightness that bothered him. "Grace, I think I should go to the doctor. I'm feeling something odd." "What are you feeling?" "A pressure in my chest." "Probably nothing, but Claire always says not to ignore signs." Grace was worried but tried to stay calm. "Let's go to the hospital right now." At the hospital, after a series of tests, the cardiologist gave the diagnosis. Julian had suffered a mild heart attack. Nothing serious, but a warning sign that could not be ignored. Claire dropped everything at the hospital where she worked and rushed to be with her father. Tyler also arrived quickly with his family. "Dad, how are you feeling?" Claire asked, assuming her professional demeanor. "I'm fine, sweetheart. It was just a scare." "Dad, you're going to have to make some changes to your routine. Less stress, more light exercise, better diet." "Claire, I'm retired. How can I have less stress?" "You worry too much about everyone, Dad. You need to learn to truly relax." Grace held Julian's hand. "We'll do whatever it takes. The important thing is that you get better." "Grace, I don't want you worrying. It was just a warning." "Julian Sterling, you're going to do exactly what the doctors say. No arguments." Tyler laughed at Grace's serious face. "Dad, you'd better obey. When Mom uses that tone, there's no escape." Julian spent 3 days in the hospital under observation. During that time, he received visits from friends, company employees, and people who had been helped by the foundation. He was surprised to realize how many lives he had touched over the years. "Julian," Grace said on his last night in the hospital, "seeing all these people here made me realize something." "What?" "You built a family that goes far beyond us. You've touched hundreds of lives. That's an incredible legacy." "Grace, everything I did was motivated by the love our family gave me. You taught me that investing in people is worth it." When Julian was discharged, the family organized a small celebration at home. Nothing over the top, just a special lunch to commemorate his recovery. During lunch, Julian gave a speech that surprised everyone. "I want to take this moment to give some important thanks. Grace, thank you for transforming my life. Claire, thank you for teaching me what it means to be a father. Tyler, thank you for showing me that everyone deserves a second chance." He paused before continuing. "And I want to take this opportunity to announce a decision I made in the hospital." Everyone listened attentively, curious. I've decided it's time to officially hand over control of the foundation to you. Claire, I want you to be the president. Tyler, I want you to be the vice president. Grace, I want you to be the executive director. The family was surprised by the announcement. Dad, are you sure? Claire asked. I am. It's time for the new generation to take over. You have energy, fresh ideas, and the same commitment to helping people. And you? What will your role be? Tyler asked. I'll be the advisor. I'll give my input when you ask, and I'll spend more time with my grandchildren. Grace was moved. Julian, thank you for trusting us. I trust you because I know you'll do an even better job than I did. In the following months, the transition at the foundation was smooth and natural. Claire brought a medical perspective to the social projects, Tyler contributed his business experience, and Grace maintained the efficient administration that had always characterized the work. Julian enjoyed watching his children take on responsibilities that had once been his. They brought new ideas, renewed energy, and a more modern vision to the social work. Grace, do you see how competent they are? Julian would say proudly. Of course they are. They had a great teacher. No, Grace, they are naturally good. I just gave them the opportunity to shine. 1 year after the heart attack, Julian was fully recovered and healthier than ever. He had adopted a routine of light exercise, improved his diet, and learned relaxation techniques. Julian, you look younger now than you did 10 years ago, Grace joked. That's because I'm happier. Fewer responsibilities, more time with the people I love. And more time to romance me, Grace said, winking at her husband. Always time for that, my love. On a special night, Julian organized a surprise for Grace. It was the 20th anniversary of the day she started working for him, and he wanted to celebrate in a special way. Grace, exactly 20 years ago, you walked into my life and completely changed the course of your story. Not just mine, yours too, and Claire's, and Tyler's, and all of ours. Julian handed Grace a special gift, a photo album with memorable moments from the past 20 years. Julian, how beautiful. When did you do this? In the past few weeks, with help from the kids, we wanted to document our story. Grace flipped through the album, emotional. There were photos of Claire's birth, their wedding, Tyler and Claire's graduations, the births of their grandchildren, the trips they took together. This is the most beautiful love story I know, said Grace, tears in her eyes. It's our story, love, and there are still many chapters ahead. Julian, thank you for believing in me when even I didn't believe in myself. Thank you for showing me that love can be born in the most unexpected ways. That night, they made plans for the future. They wanted to visit Australia, learn Italian together, spend more time with their grandchildren, and maybe even write a book telling their story. Julian, do you think our story could inspire other people? I think so. It's a story about second chances, about chosen family, about love that overcomes prejudice. Then let's write that book. Yes, let's. But first, let's live more chapters of our story. End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of this emotional story? Did Julian make the right decision by following Grace that day? How did you feel about the twists and revelations throughout the narrative? Leave your honest comment telling which part touched you the most and whether you believe in the power of true love that overcomes all difficulties. Your opinion is very important to us. Don't forget to hit like and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories like this one.